Nice shirt, Gary.
Coordinated well.
Well, Jake, can you give us help with the team right now?
Yeah, we're progressing. I think moving in the right direction. Took advantage of, the last few days for some guys. Went into the last game a little banged up, and certainly came out not in a better place than we were going in. So we been spending a lot of time recovering, and while at the same time, obviously having needed to get on the practice floor and get better at some things. So I think specifically, Junie's progressing, Tilly's progressing, but as far as beyond today, what that means, I just don't have an answer yet.
So with Junie, like, he did kind of weird on his foot. Like, what has that, I guess, that work been like for him? We've been trying to get something like that. Was it just rest for him that he needs?
Yeah, that's where we started. It started with rest completely, and then mobility, strengthening, trying to get back on the floor, and we'll see where we're at here, in a couple hours with practice.
With Tilly, you look at his stat line in that game, and clearly he's 1 of 8, 7 assists, has some turnovers. How limited was he physically? How much did whatever he's dealing with affect him trying to be effective?
Yeah, I think it affected him. I think we talked a lot about, after the game, one of the things that we didn't do well enough was handle some of that. We'll just call it adversity. And listen, that's college basketball. You're going to face that throughout the course of the year. So, he and multiple other guys who were dealing with some stuff leading into that game, they were out there, but we didn't handle that adversity well enough, I think. And it's part of, kind of learning and growing through that. But, he's hurting or was hurting, certainly. And I think, when you're dealing with kind of lower leg issues, it impacts you, certainly. But, we feel like we've been able to gain some ground over the last handful of days. So hopefully you're trying to, I think, get them to a certain point where it's behind them. Maybe we're kind of starting to reach the point where you're not going to be 100% ever for guys who play a lot of minutes. But you want to try to get him to a place physically where he's kind of, plateauing at least, or maybe not dealing with as much pain as he was.
And how much does that then impact? You have a whole week to work on, like you said, things that didn't go well in the pit game. I'm sure you're thinking, like, okay, we can tackle all these different things, but now you've got two of your primary guys dealing with injuries. I know Bruce was limping after the game for a second. But like, how has that impacted what you've hoped to get out of this week?
Yeah, it's a balance between, getting some other guys reps and practicing hard and practicing with great physicality, while also getting some obvious really important pieces to our team, rest and time to recover. So we've had some guys step up in practice, and it's been great for them, great experience to get even more reps than usual. And then, we've tried to manage player load accordingly to make sure, as we really dive into preparation, that we're at a good place.
Bynum, it feels like with each game you're getting a little bit more out of him, and he's getting a little more comfortable. Just your thought about where he's at right now and what you're hoping to continue to get from him.
Well, it starts with energy and physicality. I think he brings those two things at a really high level for Steve, and he's playing with confidence offensively, which I like. I think that's going to continue to increase with the experience he gets in a game, and really in every game moving forward, with the importance of rebounding. He's a guy who's proven to rebound it well so far. So, we have confidence in him, certainly. And I think the more experience he can get early on in the season, the better it's going to serve this team long term.
The backups at guard, it feels like it's kind of a mixed bag when you put White or Cups or Chapman in the game, what you're going to get in terms of scoring or defense or whatever. Just what can you do, I guess, with those guys? I know each of them didn't play much last year or at all. Just what can you do, I guess? Do you sense that they're starting to come to a point where they're going to make some more productive contributions, because it just feels like there's more that they can do for you, I guess?
Yeah, we need it, right? We need some more production. from that group, and I think you throw Matthew into that group as well. And we need someone to emerge. I think Gabe has and certainly has on the defensive side, and he provides some playmaking. I think he's got another level to get to in that regard where he can create some shots for some other guys, and he's got to shoot and play with confidence offensively. And I think he is, and he'll continue to get better as he gets more reps. But we've clearly identified he's providing some real value for us. And then those other three guys, I think with Colin, I think you're going to get someone who's going to come in and play really tough, someone who can defend, and someone who can help us rebound. He's a good rebounder for a guard. And, we believe in his ability to make shots and read the game, as to when to cut, when to crash, and things. So with Taysom and Matthew, we're still figuring out, I think, when it comes time to game day, what can they provide consistently for us. And that's why practice is so important for those two guys, because we're still, neither of them have the experience, like you mentioned. So we're still evaluating that, and it's hard. It's hard to just. That's why I don't believe in just basing the evaluation of some of those young players we have on game day, because they're not getting a chance, to some degree on game day to get into a great rhythm, and so practice is critical for them. And we're looking for that consistency every single day. And the great thing is there's a level of competition in there that should drive each of them to be their best. And we need that to happen soon, and we need it to keep growing every day. And I think we're making some progress there.
Northwestern, what do you see with them? Obviously, they've lost 3 of their last 4 games, and I know last night they were down more than 20 points at halftime there at Wisconsin. Kind of got run over there in the first half. Just they're going to play much better at home, obviously. What do you think you're going to see with them, I guess? Yeah,
really tough team that, will run a lot of different actions offensively. It starts with Martinelli. He's a gifted player, has scored it at a high level for multiple years now, and is continuing to do so this year. I think the addition of Page in the middle has been great for him. Their point guard's playing at a high level. So they got those 3 guys are kind of where it starts for them, offensively. And then when you play them, they're going to be really physical defensively. They do a good job of turning teams over and scoring, off those turnovers. They're playing with more pace and aggressiveness early in the clock than they have in past years. And I think Coach Collins has a really good group, high level respect for him as a coach. And Northwestern is a really tough place to play, as this program's seen for extended years, even going back into decades ago. So our biggest thing is we've got to get better. We've obviously rebounded better, finishing possessions a little bit better. That hurt us in the Pitt game. We got to get better offensively. Can't have the type of offensive first half we had at Pitt. And we've worked really hard on that, and we'll continue to do so. And while we're preparing specifically, for to have a game plan that puts us in position to be successful on Saturday. But it's going to be a really, really tough Big Ten road game, as every game in this conference is.
Just ask one more thing. Martinelli feels like a guy that can take over the game at any time. Very unorthodox player, it feels like, with a lot of moving parts all the time and everything. Just without telling us what your plan is, what can you do to minimize his opportunities? He only had 8 shots in the game last night, I guess, so Wisconsin must have done a good job keeping the ball out of his hands or something.
Yeah, I'd anticipate him bouncing back from that and being even more aggressive. But I think you got to give him different looks. I think he's a really talented player, and especially when he gets into a rhythm. He's got great touch. It's a little unorthodox, but it goes in, and he's got great touch in the mid range. He's got great touch at the basket. He's shooting his volume isn't major, but he's shooting the 3 ball extremely well. He gets fouled a lot. He's crafty in that regard. So I think you got to give him different looks.
Coach, what has the message been to your guys where you lose the way you did against Pitt? You've got conference play kicking off. You've got top 15 Illinois. right in the distance. What does that show about a team and how they're maybe going to respond from losing, in a heartbreaking way?
Yeah, well, I think we've responded great in practice so far. And listen, we talked about it. That result hurts. It should hurt. We should feel it, but we can't dwell on it. We can't let it affect the next one. If anything, and I told them after the game, I said my biggest concern moving forward was having a great next practice, and our guys responded to that. We dove deep into the film and looked at the technical things we needed to be better at, and our guys have done a great job addressing those in practice, but increasing our physicality, increasing our pace, and things were all focal points coming out of that game, and certainly finishing plays, and part of that's rebounding, part of that's guarding without fouling. Those two areas hurt us specifically against Pitt. But I think even if he doesn't make that shot, right, there were still some things like it was about growth for us. There were still things we needed to address and grow from, whether he made that shot or missed that shot. Certainly the result matters. I'm not saying it doesn't, but we have to continue to grow and get better. Like, we know what's ahead of us in Big Ten play. So for the next, really until kind of Christmas, you have to get better or you're not going to be ready for Big Ten play. Win, lose, you got to keep getting better. So that's been our mentality. That's been our mindset. Disappointed in the result, absolutely. But it's about growing right now. And so far we got 2 more days of practice to make sure we continue that, to get ready to put our best foot forward against Northwestern.
Besides the leaders that we talk about a lot, were there any guys that surprised you with how they kind of responded to that loss and maybe took more of a leadership role because of it?
I think our leadership team's been pretty consistent, but I think Brandon Knowles had 2 really good practices since the game. I think Amari's a guy who isn't viewed as a leader, but he's developed a consistency with his energy and physicality that's important, and he's maintained that since the game and continues to get better. So there's been some individual growth in some guys, certainly, because they were upset because we lost that game. So I've been really happy, but I think the voice of Bruce, Tilly, Devin, those guys have had a consistent voice for us, and their leadership. Obviously, when you go through a result like that, the way it went down, their leadership is critical, and they've led really well since then.
You talked about the rebounding in the video show. You mentioned the dead ball, not securing the ball. I think they had a couple of those.
Yep.
How do you teach that? Has that been an issue for you guys, or is that just see ball grab?
Yeah, I think you're evaluating in some of those circumstances, a guy flying into the paint who was untouched and caused maybe it wasn't the guy whose job was to keep him from getting to the paint. But that guy had the ball, and that guy came in, hit him, and now he loses it, right? Because that guy, his teammate, didn't box him out. So there's little things like that. But I thought the way a couple of their guys flew around towards the ball was something we watched on film and talked about, and for parts of the game executed well. But specifically, forget his name, but it's number 13 for them. He just flew in there untouched a couple times in the last 4 minutes of the game. It's unacceptable. So sometimes on dead ball rebounds it is that. Sometimes it's 2 guys battling, competing really, really hard, and they're wedged against each other, and you don't finish the play. But other times there were a couple possessions where we had 1 or 2 perimeter players who were maybe leaking out or drifting towards half court instead of coming in and going to get the ball that went off a big guy's hands. And so there's some technicality to it. Certainly, I don't think that stuff just always happens by chance. Sometimes you get a little unlucky, but you also got an opportunity to make your own luck. And we didn't do that enough. He played with great physicality, went to the glass, and he didn't play a significant stretch there in the second half and came in and was impactful down the stretch.
Steve was asking about Amari, bringing him off the bench and getting that kind of scoring punch. Do you figure out rotations and things? Is that important to have someone that you can bring in who's going to give you some contributions on the stat sheet?
Yeah, I think it's really important. you got to be able to, and we got to continue to work our lineups to where, maybe we don't have our 5 best scorers on the court at the same time all the time. We certainly want that at times, but being able to give some guys some clarity on when to be aggressive will help as well. Had great conversations with Brandon. I think he's a guy that can provide more offense for us. Gabe's got to continue to provide some more offense for us. Amari, I think, is he's evolving as a player and will continue to do so. And then Avon has provided some offensive punch as well in a really efficient manner. So he's got to continue to do that in the right way. So there's some potential for that to certainly increase, and we need it to. There's no denying that.
You talked about like the slow start and having the right aggression that you were having in that game. You guys seem to settle for a lot of things maybe early. Where do you think this team is in the flow of this offense? Understanding I know you want guys to be aggressive, but maybe you talk about one more and give up a good shot for a great shot. Is this team still kind of learning some of that? Do you feel like some of those early threes that maybe led to some of that deficit were forced or just maybe not the best that you want?
Well, I think a couple of them, were too quick because they weren't a high quality look, and they weren't after a paint touch. We want majority of our threes to come after a paint touch. We want to shoot a lot of threes, certainly, but we want to collapse the defense first. And we were operating, a little too much side to side without getting the ball downhill first. You want to change sides. It's hard to guard when you can change multiple sides in a possession, but you got to have a threat of the rim. And we settled for some threes that were solid looks, but when you miss a couple of those, you got to get the ball in the paint to create an even better look the next time. And we failed to do that in the first handful of minutes.
Is anybody at this point ruled out for Saturday?
No, not right now. Not right now. We're that's going to be fluid, but right now we're working as hard as we can to be at full strength when we head up to Chicago.
One more thing, because Wilfred Nancy left the crew this week going to Scotland. I know you spent some time with him this summer. What was that experience like, and what did you maybe take away from getting to spend some time with the coach, high-level coach at another sport?
Yeah, he was really impressive, and obviously did great things, for the crew when he was here. And we got a chance to spend spend part of a day together and just talking about kind of the high overviews of coaching and his experiences of working with different types of players, and we talked specifically about because college basketball, you have this newness every year on your roster. They deal with transfers mid-season, right? So I asked him some questions about how you solidify culture and teaching when you bring someone new into your team, and it was just there were some strategic things about roster management that we got to talk about, and talked about some of our coaching philosophies and some of the crossover between the two sports. So really impressive coach, and just had a great time with him. I think that organization is so high level, and not just him, but the people throughout the organization that we've had a chance to interact with is truly been special. So I'm thankful for the time I had with him, and thankful for the time I've been able to spend with the crew.
Are you in favor of a mid-season transfer portal?
I don't know if I'm ready to go on record for that one, but if we can't get healthy, maybe. No. Thanks, guys.